Alright, so I'm making this video because I recorded a video of me going over the TWAB, and it's like, almost an hour of me like reading TWAB and rambling all other shit. But I decided I'm gonna make a more concise video because there's a point I want to bring up regarding the buffs and nerfs, and it's basically Bungie's balancing philosophy since I don't know forever. It hasn't seemed to change really, and it's pretty much in my opinion, when it comes to balancing stuff, there's two important questions, and that's why and how, and that order matters. I'll give you an example. Let's look at Crucible, right? Control has skill-based matchmaking. People didn't like that, so a lot of people left. Bungie has, data for pretty much everything, so they see a lot of people leaving Crucible, and instead of asking why people are leaving Crucible, they just skip to how do we prevent this from happening? So, add a quitter penalty, right? Instead of, well, people are leaving Crucible or leaving Control. Why is this happening? Well, is it because we have skill-based matchmaking? Is it because poor connection quality? Is it because lobby balancing is horrible? Or the meta is bad? Or Crucible is in a bad state? No, let's go from people are leaving. How do we prevent this? Right? It seems a little bit, ass backwards, right? But snipers too, in general. Pre Shadowkeep, I think, like right before Shadowkeep released, they had a huge nerf on snipers and everything. And again, this is my theory. Bungie sees a lot of people using snipers. Instead of saying why people are using so many snipers are so popular, it's how do we prevent that? How do we bring that usage number in line with where we want it to be, right? So they decided to nerf snipers. Not looking at the context of, well, a lot of the bosses had huge hitboxes. It was really, getting up close and using a shotgun really wasn't the plan. Swords hasn't been reworked yet. Lament didn't exist. Listen Blade didn't exist. So there's really no benefit of getting the close. 1-2 Punch, I think, did come out with like Shadowkeep or something, and Worm God's Crest. But that build didn't really see a rise in popularity until like now. So again, um, bosses with their AoE stomp usually kill you anyways too. So why would you get close? But again, in my theory, Bungie just looked at the number and said, "Oh, people are using it a lot. Gotta nerf it." Right? Witherhoard and Gallahorn are pretty interesting cases. In the case of Gallahorn, it makes sense, right? Gallahorn was arguably the strongest heavy weapon in the game. Literally just blew through everything. Should they nerf it? In my opinion, I legitimately don't care because, again, I'm the type of person where you use whatever the fuck you want. Who cares? The video game, whatever. But I could see the reasoning behind that because, again, Gallahorn, as I said, is a buffer weapon, like a support weapon for other rockets, and it's also like one of the highest DPS in the game, so they wanted to make it more of a buffer weapon. Fine, whatever. Plus, it's been about a year, so now they can nerf Gallahorn without everyone going like, so they already sold their DLC for 30th anniversary. Witherhoard's a more interesting case, right? Because again, I think in the case of Witherhoard, context matters. Um, I think the reason why Witherhoard got really popular was a couple of reasons. One, Starfire Protocol builds, right? Where if you don't know, if you have Starfire Protocol and you stand in a rift, and you throw, fusion grenades, you basically can spam fusion grenades, right? So, and any damage while you're in an Empowering Rift gives you back more grenade energy. So Witherhoard does continuous damage. You stand in an Empowering Rift or well, you can throw a lot more, a lot more grenades, right? Bait and switch Cataclysm became really popular because they buffed bait and switch. And what's a good weapon? What's the main problem with bait and switch? Well, you have to shoot a weapon, then you have to reload it at some point because you're going to be cycling through all three. Well, you shoot Witherhoard once, does continual damage, it auto reloads, so then you're good, right? You don't have to worry about reloading that weapon. You just have to worry about reloading your other weapon and your Cataclysm. So that makes sense in PvE, right? And it's pretty good for ad clear. Look at Golgoroth encounter. You can shoot Witherhoard at your feet, shoot at the boss, and now you don't have to worry about the thrall harassing you, and you can do damage to the boss. Very good weapon, right? PvP, and I'm not sure because I didn't really look in depth, but I think they also said the usage statistics were really good in PvP. And again, instead of saying, well, why is it that? They're just saying, okay, how do we stop it from being too high? Again, there's a couple reasons. Is it because Witherhoard is a one-hit kill no matter what if you get a direct stick? Is it because, I don't know, there's a game mode called Control where you need to hold points to get more, like, more flag points or whatever, or maybe it was Zone Control Trials that weekend, or maybe because Zone Control Trials exist now, that would become more popular. Um, is it because it's a good counter to bubbles? Is it a good counter to camping or barricade camping? There's a lot of reasons why I could see Witherhoard's being like it being popular in both game modes. But again, in my opinion, it just seems that Bungie says, okay, well, weapons being used too much. How do we make it not used so much? And again, they decided to cut it from 7.5 to what 4.5 or 3.5 seconds. It's like almost half. It lost almost half its time, so that's gonna hurt the damage a lot. I don't think Witherhoard will be useless. It's still gonna do its thing, but still, that really does suck. Um, Whisper is another example where context matters. Because if you use Whisper back in this prime time, you only really use it in like Nightfalls and raids. You weren't using this thing in a Strike. You weren't using this thing in Gambit or Crucible, unless you're like doing like a meme or something in Crucible. So, and again, instead of Bungie saying, "Well, why is that?" they just say, "Well, okay, how do we adjust it? Is it, 0 hour exists, the Whisper mission exists, and in both those cases, you get a nice little spot you can stay in. You can hit some headshots because every enemy kind of just stood still and had a big crit spot. And look, now everyone uses Whisper. Um, and this is kind of a slight tangent because it does annoy me too because it's the way they design their encounters too. Because a lot of their encounters up until that point is again you get close to the boss, you get stomped to death, they do a lot of damage. It's not wise to get close, right? But they'll make the boss have a huge head hitbox, and there's usually a place where you can stand back and shoot, right? But then look at Deepstone Crypt, where you can actually get close to the boss, you can get close to Atrax, you can get relatively close to Taniks. Now, can you sword Taniks? Technically, yes, but I mean, you can use a slug shotgun for DPS because you're close enough where a Luna faction will actually let you do full damage for shotgun, right? And now you see the slug shotguns at a high usage rate during the time. It's almost as if Bungie designed their encounter differently, certain weapons are better than other weapons, right? And that's my little tangent over. But that's the main point is that I feel like when it comes to their balancing decisions, they look at how instead of asking why, then going to how. Um, Again, it's not always like the worst, I guess, because and most of the time, yeah, if something has a really high usage rate, like an astronomically high usage rate, it's probably overpowered, or there's probably something good about it. I get that from that point of view, like very analytical, but again, context matters a lot. Again, like especially when it comes to numbers, because if I say the number 12, that could be anything. Is that how many games I have, how many gallons of gas I have in my car? It context matters for numbers, right? And with Bungie, I don't know if they're looking at the whole context. I know they have some context. I obviously say, oh, it's high. It's a high number in raids or something. I get that, but I don't think they're looking at the entire context. Um, Another thing too was I think the super regen exotics were. I think this is one of those rare instances where the how kind of makes sense too, instead of just asking why. Because back in the day, Orpheus Rig, Ursa Furiosa, Shards of Galanor, you could pretty much change super back to back because it was really because of the super regen exotics. So I could get where they're saying, okay, well, people are using the super a lot. How do we prevent that? That makes sense instead of why. Although I do find it funny that after they nerfed those super regen exotics, they introduced a menagerie where it's like an add clusterfuck, so you'd still use Orpheus Rig anyway. So that's a tangent. But that's pretty much the entire point of this video is that I think Bungie keeps asking the wrong question, or they keep asking a question in the wrong order. And obviously, it seems like the fatigue is high in the community. People don't like things the way they are. The season plunder has been kind of funny. Like the ending is fucking oh Jesus. I could make an entire video about that, but I think it would do Bungie a lot of good is because it seems like they just keep making new shit, keep turning shit out, and not revisiting old shit. And when that happens, things that get broken are left broken for a while. Like, Gur Falcons was disabled for like half the season with 0 point contact brace, right? And what gets me excited now in Destiny when it comes to sandbox tuning is looking at older stuff. Like, how can we make older stuff more viable? How do we make someone use Prospector more, or Hardlight more? That makes me more excited than look at this new gun or whatever. That's my personal opinion. I think Bungie could maybe take a page out of Warframe and just like not dedicate an entire season, but just say, hey, we're gonna just take like this amount of time to just focus on all our old content. Bring some stuff up to snuff. Maybe hey, bring back some old strikes, some Crucible maps. I don't know. Destiny needs like a year or like a season or just a amount of time where Bungie just focus on the here and now instead of the future constantly. Like just focus on this, work on what we have right now, and then move on. Because at this rate, it really is like people are really just getting tired of this. Um, but that's pretty much it. It's a little bonus thing. In terms of the fundamental weapons, Hardlight Borealis and Dead Messenger, I think they need to go way harder with these exotic buffs or whatever because I think they were titled reworks. Because the Telesto event, showed us that, hey, Bungie can change an exotic server side pretty fucking fast if they wanted to, because there's no hotfix for the Telesto thing, and when it changed the fire mode the next day, there wasn't a hotfix for that either. So, fuck it, just try to make these weapons really strong, and if they're too strong, reel them back, fuck it. Okay, here's my idea. Borealis, let's go Borealis, right? They all have the elemental capacitor, but fine, keep it, I don't give a shit. But for Borealis, give it a volt shot, and when I mean give it volt shot, not on a kill, you actually no fucking do. Give it volt shot on a kill or on a shield break. Uh, for um for Solar Borealis, on a kill, give it incandescent, and on a shield break, give it like a Polaris Lance thing where it shoots a round that just causes solar ignition. Fuck it, do that. For Void, since it's a slow firing sniper, volatile rounds really aren't the best. So I'd say give it like on a kill, give it like a suppressor round, and then on a suppressor round and weaken, and then on a shield break it does the same thing where it weakens and suppresses the target. And then the catalyst, call it chromatic caliber, where if you, I don't know, break 3 shields or break all elemental shields and without reloading or some bullshit, you get like a super bullet that does jolt on hit, ignition on hit, and then weaken and suppress on hit. Obviously, apply the weaken suppress first, and then you can add the other two so it does more damage. Right? Is it strong? Probably, but that'd make people want to use Borealis, and if it becomes too strong, tweak the numbers, adjust some shit, whatever. You like, I don't know. For Hardlight, give it Volt Shot on Arc, Incandescent on Solar, Volatile Rounds on Void. Dead Messenger, you do whatever the fuck, do the same treatment like that. Uh, Again, I think people, we're in like a weird period. We're just kind of waiting for the next expansion. That's like what every season feels like. You're just waiting for the next big expansion. But if you want people to get more excited, you need to shake up the sandbox more. Like plus 80 effectiveness on Whisper isn't going to make people want to suddenly use a Whisper. These changes to Heartland Borealis are going to make me suddenly want to use those weapons. I mean, the Cold Heart buff's nice, the Forerunner buff's nice, but nothing. When I looked at that TWAB, none of those buffs made me like, man, I really want to use this weapon next season. Like, just no. But anyways, that's a tangent. The main point is just trying to talk about Bungie's design philosophy. Again, these are all assumptions on my end, but I've been playing this game for a while, and to me it seems like Bungie again asks how instead of why. So that's pretty much it, and thanks for watching.